Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 9 of season 5, a episode entitled
Schizogeny.
yeah, an episode entitled
Yeah.
anyway, Brian.
Okay. Yeah. Schizogeny, which is something to do with the splitting of cells. Apparently, we looked it up since last week. So
We looked it up, we studied into it, and we're still none the wiser. So yeah.
pretty much. So yeah. Legacy. I guess you're going to ask me. Not
Yeah.
much one. I don't think. I don't hear this bandied about amongst people's favourites a lot. Now that I've said that, care to guess where it sits in the pantheon on IMDb?
Let's go for 156.
Oh, you estimated pretty high. It's much lower. It's 192.
192.
Yeah,
Okay.
so right near the bottom. Yeah, okay. So, right. So we get into it then.
Yes, let's do it.
So, as with last week's episode, we start off with a character named Bobby.
Yep.
Is playing video games, rather reminiscent of Giovanni Ribisi in the episode DPO. This guy's got DPO vibes all over him.
Indeed.
So his stepdad comes home, sees all his tools out in the rain and stuff, and goes in, has a Barney with him, kind of drags him outside and says, "You will finish this work." And the kid's like, "Get out of my face!" He's like, starts shouting at him. The dad runs after him in this orchard, and then all of a sudden gets pulled underground by the mud, and the kid seems to be trying to help him, or is he? That's the question, and it's like, ooh, right.
You've kind of you've breezed over the fact that there's just some guy standing in the woods for no reason whatsoever,
and the fact that his mum's there as well. So his mum's involved, and she's like, kind of like, is she like one of those passive mothers who doesn't stop abuse, or I don't know. There's a lot going on in this intro with regards.
The dad keeps going about all the tools that are out, but we only see like a shovel. That's the only one. Just like literally one tool. When it gets to the sequence in the woods when the dad is going under, that's great. It's a great sequence of going under, but they're trying to frame it as in it could be help, it could be pushing him down. But in my mind, like, he's trying to help. It just looks like he's trying to help.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't have the face of someone who's pushing. He's got the face of someone who's desperately trying to pull up. So it instantly says, "Yeah, okay, this kid's not to blame for what's going on here."
And I don't know what was going on in my head, but I'm just like, oh, it's weird to have quicksand in a forest. And that was it.
What I do like about this opening is the way it's shot. It's really atmospheric. It's really nicely shot. They've got some, just with the lightning and the way it's lit and the rain. It's very it's got proper horror movie vibes.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a terrible opening. It's like, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's see where this goes.
And then even after the intro, when we get to the next sequence, I think it starts off like really promising. But we'll get there in a second.
Yeah, well, we'll get there now. Scully says murder. Mulder says not so sure. But
Fuhrer goes, don't care.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that she's pulling that mud out and dumping it all in the big tray.
Yeah. It's like all of this has come out of one guy's body. It's like, oh, that's great.
And they start off on that thing straight away where it almost feels like forced, where Scully starts to come out with theories of why this has happened, and Mulder starts to come out with reasons as to why she's wrong and what might have happened. It just feels too early in the episode before they've really uncovered anything information.
Yeah. Although I got to say that given Mulder, given that Scully is the doctor and the autopsy, the one doing the autopsy and stuff,
Yeah.
I do feel like in this instance, Mulder is the one who's trying to force his. Like it feels like Mulder is just coming out with wild theories at this point for the sake of that's what he does. And as you say, it's like I feel like Scully's got more kind of cause to come up with what she does than what Mulder does with his.
But as a viewer, having seen this kid, there's no way he's dug like a 6-foot deep hole. Like,
no. Right. So Mulder quizzes Bobby while Scully quizzes the mother. And in that whole quizzing, we learn that there has been a blight on the trees in the local area.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we learn a right lot else. I mean, Bobby Bobby tries to make out, I think, or allude to the fact that he was abused by the dad, whereas the mum...
But at the same time, the mum's like, absolutely not. But I will tell you what, the editing is pretty on point here, the way it cuts between the two sequences, because take these two sequences separately, they're probably boring as hell. So by at least cutting it together, it makes it interesting to watch.
Yeah. And it's just showing that... and again, if you think about the title of the episode, which, Schizogeny, which is supposed to be like a separation of cells, apparently. I don't quite understand the whole science of it, but it's a cavity that's created through the separation of cells, and that's literally what's going on here. And it's edited to show that you've got this cavity in the lives of these people, that's kind of being created by a separation of ideas, a separation of beliefs, a separation of mother and son. So he's saying one thing, she's saying the other. And that's kind of shown through the editing. So in that regard, it's pretty well done. It's quite well handled. So Mulder and Scully check out the hole. Mulder doesn't buy Scully's theories, and he just like how she's dropping all these theories about how a guy could be buried straight up and have swallowed all that dirt, and he just looks at her and goes,
vortex or vacuum or something, or just
yeah, and he's just looking at her like laughing, just like no, which was a really nice kind of moment. I thought so.
Spooky Scully.
Yeah, spooky Scully. So a man with an axe watches them. So Scully sees the guy with the axe, and it's just this guy. He just pops up randomly throughout the episode, and even right at the end, and we'll get there when we get there. But it's just like, man, it's so. You can't
where
do
did you
that.
come from?
You can't just come up to someone, chop their head off, and then get to walk away. It's like, anyway, whatever. So, Bobby tries to speak to a girl at school, played by Catherine Isabella.
Ginger.
Ginger Snaps. It's worth pointing out that pretty much all of the supporting cast in this episode go into Smallville at some point.
Okay.
So the therapist woman was Lana's mum. Catherine Isabella was in an episode where she was trying to escape this dream demon, and then this guy was in another. I can't remember which episode he was in, but I know I saw his face in Smallville. So it's funny though that how they're here in 1997, is it? Yeah, 97, playing teenagers. And then they're in Smallville she appeared in the 4th season. So you're looking at like about 7 or 8 years later, and they're still playing teenagers. Give me a break.
At least now I think she is actually a teenager in this one.
Yeah. In this one, they actually look like teenagers. And then when you get to Smallville, they're like full-grown adults still playing teenagers. So... so he tries to speak to her. He gets bullied, but then he stands up to the bully by making out that he did in fact kill his dad, and the bullies kind of get weirded out and decide to
and
leave
then
it and
instantly
walk off.
start bullying him again. Ooh, killer!
Yeah.
Psycho killer!
Yeah, but from a distance though,
Yeah.
they step back and they're like, it's more a bravado thing. They don't want to be seen to be backing down without at least throwing a last thing in there. So, and that's essentially what's going on here on both sides. It's just teenage bravado that nobody wants to back down, and he's using the death of his stepdad to just scare people. I don't believe for a second this.
I will say that Bobby is, I would say he's probably the main character here, would you say? For the most part? For the start of the episode?
Yeah, I reckon so.
He's such an abrasive, unlikable character that it's so hard to feel anything for him whatsoever. I just don't like him.
No, not at all. And Mulder calls that out at one point. There's one point when Scully kind of asks him about what he believes, and then he says, I believe he's a pretty hard kid to love. It's like, yeah, do you think? So Mulder and Scully go to see Bobby's therapist, who vaguely implies that Bobby did it. Mulder says he doesn't believe he did. Now, this scene, so this introduces this woman. I can't remember the actress's name. But she played Lana's mother in Smallville. But by this point...
Sarah Jane Redmond?
Yes, Sarah Jane Redmond. By this point at which this episode aired, she'd already been in a couple of episodes of Millennium, which obviously was the sister show to the X-Files. Now, in Millennium, she plays a real big bad. It's kind of alluded to the fact that she might be the devil himself or herself. And they were really strong episodes, particularly the first one she was in. Right? She kills she's responsible for the death of one of the main characters. And when it happened, it was a real what the heck moment kind of thing, and it was really dark and really oh man. And she, in that episode, she was established as quite a. She would pop up several times throughout the show, and every time she did, it was like, oh crap, she's back. Frank Black's in trouble. So when she appears here, and even in this sequence, she feels very manipulative. She feels it. It feels like she's up to something with these kids. And all I could think of was, this is that character.
Right.
Because when she pops up in Millennium, she always pops up with a different name. She looks the same, but she comes with a different identity. But it's the same.
You're bringing some baggage with you.
Yeah, I'm bringing some baggage with me. And I don't know if they did it intentionally to spice the episode up and garner interest from the fans. But the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, is this like the first time they did a crossover with Millennium? Is this that character? Is she going to be messing with Mulder and Scully the same way she messes with Frank Black? Turns out, no, she isn't. It's a completely different character. But it's just, I just feel like if it had been, I think it would have raised the episode a bit for me.
Right.
But it's not. So instead, they go a Norma Bates kind of way of doing things. But anyway, that's I brought that up just because I mentioned it last week, which is one of the things I remembered before going into this was Sarah Jane Redmond was in it, and I couldn't remember if she was playing the same character that she played in Millennium. And I hadn't seen this episode for so long that when I started watching it and when she came into this scene, I was like, maybe she is. Because I couldn't remember anything about it, and then it wasn't, so my excitement died after that, but whatever. So Bobby catches Lisa just as she gets home, tells her she needs to stand up to her dad while her dad watches from the window. He just he just gives off real creep vibes.
100%.
Nothing likable whatsoever about him. The dad, so she goes into the house and the dad tells her to stay away from Bobby. She freaks out at him, runs out the room, and then moments later something comes through the window and kills the dad.
Yeah.
Kind of reminiscent of Sam Raimi Evil Dead kind of vibe.
But the thing is here is we've got these kids who are like, we need to stand up to our parents. We've got one who just doesn't raise a hand but makes him tidy up after himself, and we've got another one who just says, stay away from that kid that's suspected of murder, which is fair enough. At which point she runs away and the father does nothing. And you've got this, like,
but she doesn't just run away, she explodes in his face. It's like you're watching this scene play out and she's the one who seems really unreasonable. And you're like, what on earth? So
because especially in the first sequence when Bobby runs away, the father seems concerned. He's not chasing after him to give him, he's chasing after him to get him back to the house, to make sure. So not the most it's not the hardest of parents they've got here.
No. And it's just, I think it's, the episode would work better if you were always in doubt about whether these parents were in fact abusive.
Yeah.
But because you're never in doubt, you know something else is going on. And so it's just, it feels plodding until we get to the reveal of what the mystery actually is. It just feels plodding because you're never in doubt as to like, well, we know it's not the parents.
Yeah.
And it's like,
so
just get on with it. Yeah. So Mulder and Scully come to interview Lisa. The therapist is already there, whispering into Lisa's ear. Mulder takes her outside. She says that she works with victims of domestic abuse to empower them to stand up for themselves, which instantly just like, okay. So she's our bad guy, basically. She's controlling these kids in some way, but what is it? How's she doing it? Is it mind control? Is it hypnosis? What's going on? But and how does that factor into a weird tree-like creature that seems to be popping these guys off? But I will say I do like Sarah Jane Redmond as well. She's very good at giving off creep vibes. And again, a lot of that probably comes from my experience with her in Millennium. Because I thought she was very good in Millennium. So the whole time I'm watching it here, I'm just thinking, there's something off about her. She does that really well. So Mulder examines the window, says that Lisa's dad was pulled, not pushed through it. And it's like science 101, really. It's the first thing I think anyone with an interest in forensics learns. It's glass on the outside, they came out, not in. So Scully pulls Bobby out of class and he walks out full of bravado, like he's like, I'm getting taken out by the FBI guys. And it's just like you can tell he's getting off on the power that he thinks this gives him over the class. So,
but I don't like she bursts into the class with like two officers. There's no other teacher there guiding her to which class it is and to pull him out. And then she starts engaging with him in front of everybody as well. And I'm like, just like grab him by the ear and just yank him out of that classroom.
Yeah, and I think at this point she thinks he's guilty. Clearly. So Mulder goes to the coroner and finds something.
How crap is this coroner? If literally Mulder could look at the body for 30 seconds and go, have you seen this?
The thing is, not only how crap is the coroner, but like there's a very simple explanation for that. Like if the guy's fallen through the window, he could have easily landed on a twig on a piece of wood, on a splinter, on anything, and that's all it is essentially. It's like a splinter. It's like why is this such a big deal? Why is this a smoking gun? You know what I mean? Mulder's looking at it. He comes with his evidence bag in a minute as if it's like this major smoking gun. It's like, dude, he fell out of a window. Whatever's on the floor, it's like, you land on a splinter. Oh, boo-hoo. It's hardly break the case evidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of pointless, but also the pathologist should have seen it as well. Really.
Yeah, I mean, like, at least a comment like, yeah, I saw that. I just dismissed it. He's clearly fallen on something, hasn't he, when he came out the window? And then have more.
I just thought I'd leave it there for.
Yeah. It's just like stupid. So, Scully. Sorry, I'll just take a drink because losing the power of speech. Scully examines Bobby. Examines his arms and what she's looking for. I'm not entirely sure, but
I think it's any kind of remnants of maybe pulling or dragging or something.
Yeah. Okay, so Mulder brings his evidence.
Yeah. But I do like this interaction because Bobby's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Evidence."
Yeah.
and although it's a kind of funny comment, it just shows you how like instantly abrasive people are to Bobby. Like there's no need to be that kind of just aloof with it, but he is just simply because it's this obnoxious teenager.
Yeah, I feel like Mulder kind of it's such a sarky git in here. Oh man, so Lisa goes to stay with the therapist. It's a bit unclear at first because the house looks exactly like her house.
Yes.
And because she puts her hand on her shoulder and says, "Take some time," it's almost like she's going to walk her through her own house in order to help her in some way. And it's only like in the scene after, or the second scene after, where I'm like, "Oh no, they're at the therapist's house."
Yeah.
This is weird. The therapist has taken her home with her. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No. So Lisa goes to stay with the therapist, otherwise known as Norman or / Norma Bates.
Yeah. The psycho references are all over this.
Abundant. Yeah.
And they're amateurish.
Really amateurish, yeah. Like Psycho's one of my favourite movies of all time. Not just horror movies, but just movies in general. So like, and Psycho 2 as well is such a great sequel.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to touch on this stuff, you need to do it well. And this does. It's so heavy-handed. Like, just hearing that voice, the dad voice, which is clearly a woman. It's clearly a woman's voice doing the whole deep kind of dad voice thing. It's creepy. I'll say that. It sounds creepy. Like if I heard that in the house, I'd be like, "Oh crap, I need to get out of here," because that's just weird. But instantly, you know what's going on. It's like I'm not guessing at this point. I'm just like, "Oh, that we can't see her. We can't see this supposed dad or this other character that's talking. We know clearly this is split personality stuff. This is Norma Bates type stuff." So,
and nothing robs an episode more of momentum than when you're ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
You're just waiting for them to catch up. It's horrible.
Plodding. So Mulder and Scully check out the house where the dad died, Lisa's house. Mulder does a spot of tree climbing. Gets like.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Just, I don't know if this shelf is from this part of the tree, but I'm going to climb up to see if it's different from the one up top.
Yeah. So it's basically just to show us that Mulder's a big kid at heart, and he's like, it makes for a little funny moment. But what I find even funnier is how spooked Scully gets when the Axeman appears. It's like, woman, you've got a gun.
I'm thinking that the full time. I'm like, this is two armed FBI agents with a good bit of distance between the man with the axe.
Like, she's backing off. Like, this is the creepiest situation she's ever been in. We've seen Scully handle some like real hard cases and be like all up in their faces and stuff. And she's like, oh, she looks so creeped out, like a scared little mouse. And it's like, this ain't Scully. It's like she'd have a hand on a gun. It's like, excuse me, sir, do you wanna just back off a little bit?
Put that axe down.
Yeah, put the axe down and identify yourself, please. That's Scully, not this. Oh, Mulder, can you get down from the tree, please? Yeah. Come on. It's
even when she hands them the evidence, they have to take a couple of steps to each other to hand it over.
And
then they go back to their corners almost.
And she's handing it over like really nervously. It's like that ain't Scully. That is not Scully. So but she hands the Axeman the evidence and it's like, do you recognize this? Is it from? And he says it's from this tree that your boy Mulder here has just climbed up. And then he proceeds to just whack his axe into it, makes it bleed, and then says that they had a similar blight 20 years ago. And Scully says, what causes it? And he's like, an evil man. Basically, this guy should be a Native American. Yes. It's like, if this guy was a Native American, he would be the stereotypical kind of Native American character that you find in TV shows like this, where he comes up and he's like, yes, 20 years ago we had a blight and a crazy wolf man came and it's evil. It's just and again, this guy, he just pops up at random intervals with his axe, spouts out some line of dialogue, and then that's it. And it's so random. Lisa follows muddy footprints through the house down to the cellar because, that's what I'd do.
Oh, yeah, a stranger's house.
In a stranger's house, I see, creepy ass basement with muddy footprints going down to it. Yeah, I've just lost my dad in suspicious circumstances. Of course I'm going down to that cellar. Why wouldn't I? Having just heard some creepy ass woman-man voice. Yeah. And it's just... and the passage of time as well here. It's like... Yeah. We start this shot with her following these footprints. Like literally the shot starts on the footprints and then it follows Catherine Isabella's or Lisa's feet. And she's already following him. And we're like, have we missed a scene here? Yeah. Has a scene been cut out? Like, why? You know what I mean? It feels like an odd place to start the scene. Yeah. Like,
it's just disjointed.
Yeah, really disjointed. So, Mulder and Scully question Dr. Matthews. Her father died 20 years ago. So presumably this is the man that Axeman was talking about, was referring to. So her dad died 20 years ago under very similar circumstances to Bobby's dad, buried in mud. His death was said to stop a tree blight, much like the one currently plaguing the town's orchards. Yeah. So that's like a folk tale in the town. When this guy died, the blight kind of went away. So this was an evil man, apparently. So, all right. Okay. You know what this episode reminds me of in some ways? Red Museum. In the sense that they're trying to put too much stuff in it. Yeah. They want it to be like a monster story with like a tree monster. They want it to be a psychological villain of the week story with this therapist who's like Norman Bates. They want it to be a creepy kids killing their parents story. It's like, what is it? it's hard to get a bead on what the main thread is a lot of the time. It's only like when you get to the end of the episode and you go back in retrospect that you can kind of figure it out. But like I say, it's so disjointed. It's like,
it's one of those episodes where you just don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not terrible. Just don't care.
You're throwing too much at us that's not interesting enough.
Yeah.
And you kind of already get a lot of the major plot beats that they're trying to build as suspense moments. It's like, So Lisa watches Mulder and Scully from the basement as they leave. Though, see, this scene annoys me as well, because later on she's banging on the window and the aunt hears her. Why did she just start banging on the window too late? Did she wait for them to get in the car before she started banging on the window? Is it just that Mulder and Scully are deaf? I don't know. Convenience. It's just convenient plotting. So she watches them from the basement as they leave. Then Dr. Matthews whispers through the door that she needs her to be quiet or he'll hear. And it's like, right, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Man alive. Mulder and Scully dig up Charles Matthews' grave. So this is Dr. Matthews' dad. There's no body in the coffin, just a massive pile of twigs all kind of knotted up and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay. That's something you don't see every day.
Which is quite cool. It's a cool sequence, like opening the grave to that freaky image.
Yeah.
But by this point, I'm so checked out of the episode that it's hard to be invested at all.
Yeah,
exactly.
Pretty much like that. Yeah. Lisa's aunt comes calling, gets killed for her trouble. As
Which
I
is
say,
cool.
it's quite a cool death scene. But it's just like, why are these twigs popping up out of nowhere and killing people? Is somebody controlling them? Are they linked to something else? Are they the ones doing the controlling? It's all just second guessing all the time, and like, but just don't care enough to want to find the answers. Mulder suggests to Scully that nature killed those people. Maybe nature being controlled by someone. That's he literally just plucks this out of his ass. It's like any other episode, you can see the logic behind where Mulder has got his theories from. Here, it feels like we only know what's going on because Mulder tells us. Yeah. Like, we should be able...
I don't believe Mulder believes that either. You know, I don't feel his conviction in this either.
No. Because it's like, we should see the evidence, and then Mulder's theory makes us go, yeah, that makes sense, because look at the evidence. But here, you hear Mulder's theory, and then you're like, what's Mulder actually seen that would lead him to this? Yeah. I feel like he's really putting two and two together and coming up with 64. It's ridiculous. So we go back to Bobby, who tells them that Karen, the therapist, made him say those things. Presumably what he means by those things are about the abuse of the father. That kind of gets a bit lost in this conversation, because he just says, he made me tell him those things. She made me tell them those things. And like, for an instant you go, hang on, what things? What things is he on about? It's like, he said a lot of things through this episode. It's like, but yeah, so it appears as though the therapist has been conditioning these kids. Yes. So again, like, just motive. Just getting lost. I've just written there Norman and Norma, so I'm assuming there was another scene there. I don't know. I'm lost in my own notes now because it's so dull. Mulder and Scully search Karen's house. They find. Oh yes, it was the dad. That was it, because we see the dad
in the basement.
In the basement, which again, it's the mother in the basement in Psycho. Only this time, it's the dad in the basement. So Mulder and Scully search Karen's house. They find her dad. Mulder suggests that Karen is both killer and victim, as if that's supposed to be some kind of surprise for us at this point, but we're already one step ahead of them. We knew this about 10 scenes ago. The door to the cellar slams shut. Mulder kicks it open. And they find Lisa on the floor. And Mulder pursues Karen. It's all just a lot of random events.
Yeah.
Mulder pursues Karen and gets stopped by a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's all just piecemeal, isn't it? It all just feels like, why is Lisa on the floor in the kitchen? You know? She was locked in the basement. Now she's not locked in the basement. She's like, none of
it makes sense.
What's going on? Like they go to check the house. They go down to the basement. They don't find Lisa, who's been there this whole time, yet for some bizarre reason isn't anymore. Yeah. They get trapped in the basement, which is pointless because Mulder kicks the door open in 2 seconds flat.
Yep.
And Lisa's just there. Like, Karen's got... It's all just like... we'll put Lisa here. So badly written. So Karen goes to Bobby's house. She barges in and Bobby does a runner into the orchard, like with the opening scene.
Yeah.
Only this time he begins to sink in the mud. Mulder randomly appears from behind. Like, just because why not?
Just because we need to get to the end.
We need to get to the end.
To get to the end.
We do. So Mulder just randomly appears, tells Karen to stand up to the father. She says Karen is dead. So this is obviously the father personality speaking through Karen. Says that Karen is dead. And then in the most random act in any episode of the X-Files that I can possibly think of, Axeman rocks up, chops her head off, says it's done, and then walks off.
Yep.
And you're like, what the hell just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Because however you look at that on paper, that guy's going down for murder.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, if you pragmatically look at it, the boy is in some kind of quicksand, earth getting pulled in. The therapist is just standing watching, and this guy's just walked out and went, you know what?
Yeah. It's like...
And you could almost picture him putting the axe over the shoulder and just whistling as he walks away.
Yeah, yeah.
Job done. Why is Scully there, like shooting her or something?
Man. But it's not the way to end the episode at all. No. Surely, the whole thing has been about like getting these kids to confront the fear. So surely having Bobby confront her, stand up to her, and say that he's not going to take it anymore. Surely that's how you end it. That like it kind of breaks her spell. That's the way to go. If not that way, then you get her to break the spell by get Mulder having to confront it the way he was trying to do. But it's like, we're just going to have this guy come up and chop her head off. Boom, job done. It's the most random, pointless ending to an episode where nothing is really solved in any thematic sense. It's just, I don't know what to do, so...
But the amount of paperwork after this, because there is no evidence linking this woman to
There's
any
no
of the murders.
case. There's no case. There's a murder case now.
I mean, all they can say is that she lost her head, but other than that, there's not much else. Like, it's horrible. Right, I'm just going to jump into a wrap up of this, Brian. This is the worst episode of season 5 so far by a country mile.
Clearly.
Now, there is a lot of inconsistencies, but I will add one caveat. This wouldn't make the bottom 5 of any other season, I don't think. But it sticks out like a sore thumb and amongst what has been a pretty great season. So I think its faults are exaggerated because it's in amongst a great season so far. That being said, this was a slog to get through. This is the first one this season that I've actively had to force myself to pay attention and stick through. And you can see it, you can't see it, but in my notes, they get less and less as it goes on because I just stopped caring. The characters are horrible. I don't empathise with any of them. I don't care about the mystery. I'm just not interested. My score, as we've talked, has been dropping like all the way through the conversation, and I think I'm going to go for a 2 out of 5 on this one.
I'm going to go with a 2 out of 5 as well. And it's just like, you remember the season 2 episode Aubrey, where there was the serial killer in the woman and it kept on carving sister on people. It was a really good, like, thematically it was really well done. You know, it was that idea of like nature versus nurture as told through this woman who kept on having a serial killer kind of come through her kind of thing. In that episode, they did such a good job of making you sympathise with her. She was the killer, but she was also the victim. And you felt sorry for this woman, like, throughout it. Here, they don't do that. So, like, this character, played by Sarah Jane Redmond, should be a sympathetic character. It should be someone that when you get to the end and you find out everything that's gone on, you want her to overcome this darkness that's within her. That's what it should be. But it's just so badly drawn that, you, like you say, you don't feel anything for any of these characters, and you should. There's no attempt is made to make you care. So, 2 out of 5. It's definitely the worst of the season by a country mile so far. Big time. So,
tell me a little bit about episode 10, Chinga.
Chinga. So, this is an interesting one. So, for some time, Stephen King had professed his love for the X-Files.
I'm a big Stephen King fan.
Had expressed a desire to write an episode. So they let him.
Wow.
Now, from what I gather, I've heard a lot of rumours. I've never actually myself. I've never specifically heard Chris Carter, in an interview talk about it. But I understand there was some production troubles with this, and with King, and that a lot of the episode was rewritten, so that the final script ended up more or less being King's story, but like the X-Files team's screenplay. But either way, it's the Stephen King episode.
Wow.
And it's about it's about a killer doll. So
I'm in. Sold. I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping it's at least entertaining and we can get back onto the track with season 5, which up until now has been pretty fantastic.
I don't remember it being as good as I wanted it to be, but you get through that episode and then we've got what for me are 2 absolute bangers. So
that's something to look forward to. As long as Ching is better than Schizogeny.
I think it is, personally. I could be wrong.
I never want to think about it. I never want to even try and pronounce it yet again. So as always, thank you for watching or listening. Please rate or review because it really does help us. And we will see you next episode for episode 10, halfway through season 5, Chinga. Bye.